right. On today's show, we have Mr. Zach Williams. Zach, how are you today, brother?
Good. How are you doing?
We're wonderful. We're good. The question that we want to know, fans want to know, we see you wearing all kinds of different styles, but the question has to be asked straight out of the bat: is how many hats do you own?
Oh,
And you're not wearing a hat today,
I'm
so
not.
that's
No, I'm hanging out at the house today, so
yeah.
it's a little weird to throw a hat on. But oh man, I probably got four that I keep out on the road with me most of the time, and probably another four in boxes that are in the closet that I can kind of change out. I've got a guy that he's in Texas. His company's called Rev Ran Hats. And he makes me hats all the time. And so when I get ready to start a new tour or something, I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about this, and we'll get on a FaceTime or a text thread and start just sending ideas back and forth to each other. And he'll start mocking hats up and sending me ideas of hat bands and things like that. And then when we kind of get it where we want it, he's like, hey, putting it in the mail, it'll be there in a few days. So pretty nice. But yeah, if anybody's I get asked all the time where I get my hats. So it's Rev Ran
Okay.
hats. Find him on Instagram and stuff like that.
We asked Jordan Feliz a while back how many hats he owns because the man, I've never seen him without a hat.
Yeah.
And so he said he owns about 80 something. I said, it's,
Right. Yeah, I don't
wow,
have that many.
you must have a specific closet for just your hats. So
yes. I got a bunch of trucker hats, but yeah, the the flat rims and stuff like that. Probably got about 8 of them. So
yeah. Wow. Well, we're here to talk about your upcoming book on February 27th, Rescue Story, Faith, Freedom, and Finding My Way Home. I've read the book, and it's a powerful story. I've heard your testimony before, but could you tell our listeners what the book's about and why did you decide to write it?
Yeah. Well, the book, it's kind of a deep dive into, my life and my struggles and the things I went through to be where I'm at today. I think, I grew up in a small town, and I think a lot of, trouble just kind of finds you in small towns. There's not a lot to do. So you're always looking for something to do. And, a lot of kids just tend to kind of follow the crowd or what everybody else is doing. And I got caught up with a lot of free time on my hands, a lot of boredom, parents working all the time and things like that. And the next thing you know, you're in the middle of something that you can't figure out how to stop. And for me, I struggled for, years of my life. I grew up in a Christian family with, an amazing mom and dad and support system and community. And just somewhere along the way, I lost track of all of it. And, I had experiences or encounters with the Lord at an early age and didn't really know at the time what that was or how to handle those things. And it kind of scared me a little bit. It kind of made me uncomfortable. And so, looking back on it now, I know that it was, God had put a calling on my life that, at the time I didn't understand it. I can see it now. Yeah. And so I just wanted to write a story and talk about, everything that had gone on in my life, just so people kind of had a little bit better idea of where these songs come from,
Sure.
What's going on. And to be honest with you, it was just more of, I wanted people to find this message of hope in this story that, have friends or family or sons and daughters that struggle with the same things. And, I think once they read this, they'll realize like, man, if God can do that for Zach, he can do it for anybody. And that was really the biggest reason that I wanted to write it. I've met so many people over the last several years that have come to my concerts and heard my testimony and they'll tell me, hey, I've got a son or a daughter or a family member that's going through that. Like, you should write a book, and I never really thought about it, because, I never really thought my story was any different than anybody else's until we started kind of diving into this story. And when it was finished, I was like, man, this, God's done an amazing thing in my life and really in a short amount of time. But I say a short amount of time, but he was working all of those pieces and things when I didn't realize he was in the middle of it, and I look back on my life and I see that, none of those things were wasted, that he allowed me to live through that and walk through that to give me this platform and opportunity now to share my story and share what he's done and what he can do. And so that was really the focus was like, hey, how do we write this book, but, you know, make it available to people who are struggling, who are hopeless, and
Right.
they're going to read this and hopefully find something in it that they can, you know, use.
Now you shared and helped me out. You were talking about you wanted to play. Was it basketball or
Yeah,
was it baseball? What sport was it?
basketball. Yeah,
Basketball. And you actually had a scholarship, correct?
yeah, I did.
Yeah. And then so was your plans initially? Was you wanting to try for the NBA or?
Oh yeah, I mean that was the dream as a kid growing up. You know, I grew
Yeah.
up in kind of a basketball community. My dad and his brothers were athletes and kind of high school basketball stars. And my
Sure.
dad played college basketball, and that my dream was that was it. And so growing up,
Mm.
that was my focus.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, drugs and alcohol, sidetracked all of that, and I
Right.
lost my scholarship my senior year, and ended
Yeah.
up walking on and getting a scholarship a year later. But it was never the same. It was kind of like the
Sure.
spirit was broken. And when I picked the guitar up my freshman year in college, that was it for me. I was like, this is what I
Yeah.
want to do. And there was just
Right.
something that felt so like I was supposed to be doing this. And I didn't know at the time that, I never thought in a million years that I'd be doing what I'm doing now. I was like, I'm going to be a rock star, and that's what I want to be. And so I lived that life for a number of years until I just found myself at the bottom, and I was like, man, how do I get out of this? Can I get out of this? And thankfully, thankfully I hit my knees and prayed, and God was there to give me this rescue story.
Right. You share in your introduction to your book that your parents are responsible for everything that you had. And how do you think parents who find themselves in similar situations as yours did can pray for their kids?
I think just seeing my own parents and just how they never wavered in their faith. Even though I know that there were days that they wanted to give up and throw in the towel, um, I think eventually they kind of said, you know what, God, we're going to step out of the way and let you do what you do. And they just kind of took a step back. There was never pressure or judgy. There was never ultimatums. But I do think my parents just finally got to that point in their life where they were like, you know what, we've done everything that we know to do. We raised him in church. We've given him this root system. We planted the seed. Like, God, we can't do it. And that's
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that a lot of parents think is they're the ones that have to make that happen. But God's the only one that can make that happen. And I think if you just trust in God and pray and believe that His plan and His purpose is better than anything we could ever imagine, that's really where things start to change. And I think if anything, it's just standing in your faith and never wavering.
Yeah. Zach, I have had prophetic words spoken over me in my life and my family, and very powerful. And your prophetic word that your parents received over you. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's you'll read about it in the book, but I mean, and I actually just started sharing the story this past year from stage. But
Yeah.
basically, I was born in Florida. My parents were living down there. My dad was going to a Bible college, and they were attending this church. And they decided that they would have me dedicated. That once I was born, they were like, we're going to make the decision to raise him in church and dedicate his life to the Lord. And it was a Sunday morning. They were walking me down to the front, and I was, crying and screaming and hollering and all that. And the
Yeah.
pastor made a joke and said, this kid's, sounds like Zach's got a strong set of lungs. He'll probably be a singer. And Dad said after that, it got really serious. And the pastor looked at my parents and he said, this child will be a voice for his generation. And I didn't hear this story until I was 33 years old. And all of those years, my parents, knowing that and hearing that, I can't imagine what they must have gone through, watching, my downward spiral for so many years, and playing music in bars and nightclubs and living the lifestyle that I was living, knowing that God had another plan for my life, and Dad not telling me this, because he didn't want me to have to feel like I had the pressure to live up to something.
Sure.
So he waited until it was the right time, until God had turned my life around, and I was writing new music, and these songs that were coming out of that season of life that I'd been in, and he told me, he said, I never wanted to share this with you because I never wanted to put the pressure on you that you had to live up to something, but
Right.
I'm telling you now because what God's done in your life is He's given you this gift, this opportunity now to change lives and change hearts with songs, just like just like your life was changed. And and so that was kind of it. Uh, it was just crazy to hear a story like that. Here I was in my mid-30s, and my dad's waited all these years to tell me. I don't know if I could have been that strong to just wait for the right. I would have wanted to say something, but I'm glad that he did, tell me when he did. So,
Well, I think about, there's times for everything. The Bible talks about the a time for this and a time for that, and in Ecclesiastes. But it's true, Zach. And your dad had this word, and he knew it wasn't time. And God probably spoke to him and said, "Hey, now's not the time. He's not ready to handle this." And so God, orchestrates everything, and it's so beautiful how it all works out at the end. And how there is a time and a place for specific things. And so, like with your situation and the prophetic word that was over your life, it was a God moment, and it was
yeah,
God's timing,
exactly. Yeah.
And so, when you were writing this book, was there this is your story, this is your life, but was there something in there when you were, opening up your past and just diving into everything? Was there an aha moment where you were writing and you were like, wow, like this is really hitting me right now, even though it's already happened in your life, but it is like fresh again, or something
Yeah.
you would
I
like to
think,
share?
I mean, I really didn't know what I was getting myself into when I was writing the book. I
Right.
always think, do I have enough to talk about to write a book about,
Yeah.
my first concern was, I don't know that there's enough stuff here to talk about. Like, and then as we started, kind of diving in and taking it, pieces of life at a time, it was more like a therapy session. It was like
Yeah.
I was just uncovering and reliving a lot of these moments in my life. And I think for me, one of the biggest things that I kind of took away from it was, um, nothing was wasted. Like nothing that I went through in my life, nothing that I did has been wasted. Like, I think about, those years in high school and what happened to me in sports, the relationship I had with my high school basketball coach,
Yeah.
um, and not getting that opportunity to play college basketball. It was, I look back and I go, well, that part of my life, like, instilled this discipline in me, this drive that made me want to succeed and made me want to try to be better than everybody else at everything.
Yeah.
There's a competitive side to me that I've carried into this music
Sure.
industry and my life as a songwriter and a musician and things like that. And then I look back and I think, well, I went to college. I dropped out of college with just a few hours left, with a degree in graphic design, and I think, man, what I'm here. I have wasted all these years in college, and I didn't do anything. And but then I look at it and I go, well, I still use my arts in my merchandise, my album art. I'm so involved in the brand side of things and the
Sure.
videos and art direction. And so I just think about all of those things in my life, and and even the years I spent, in the bar, in the nightclubs, living a life that I'm not proud of living, but God didn't waste any of it. He's used all of that now for me to be able to share a story and reach people through basically a 3 minute sermon, and
Yeah.
it's like I've got 3 minutes to try to get somebody's attention and maybe
Mm.
change somebody's heart. And so for me, it's like I just realized, like nothing in my life has been void. Like God has used it all.
Yeah. What was the college team that you were eyeing?
Whenever I was in about 11th grade, I started getting, people from Mississippi State, Ole Miss. They were looking, at me. I ended up, when all that went down my senior year, those phone calls stopped, those letters
Yeah.
stopped. And then I ended up walking on to a junior college in Northwest Arkansas. It's called North Arkansas College, and it was a Division II school. And I hurt my ankle the day before our first game of the season, and had to sit out. I ended up playing my second year, but like I said, I had picked up my roommate's guitar that first year, and for me, I was like, well, I'll go ahead and stay here and finish this. 2 years out, it's paid for. I owe that to my family.
Yeah.
But in the back of my mind, I was already thinking, this is not what I want to do anymore. Like I want to play
Sure.
music, and so that was where my focus went after that.
Who are you fans of anybody now? Do you like college sports or?
I don't. I'll watch it if it's on. If I'm flipping through the channel and I'm looking for a game or something.
Sure.
I typically don't get too caught up in sports until March Madness or
Yeah.
the NBA playoffs and things like that.
Yeah.
I grew up in that Jordan Bird era, so
Oh yeah.
I love. I just don't feel like it's anything even
It's
close
different.
anymore. It's so different.
Yeah.
My son, my youngest son's 14. He's huge into basketball, so we watch games, and he's got his teams. But but I don't have anybody.
I felt like Kobe was one of the last old
Yes.
school players, and then when he passed, I'm like,
I know.
there's really nothing good to watch.
I can't get on some of these new players like that. I mean, I like watching them, and I can appreciate what they do, but at the same time, I'm like, man, they wouldn't have lasted in the 90s.
No, you're right. Well, this is a fan-based podcast, and so when we know who we're going to be interviewing, our fans will reach out to us. And we had a fan of yours, Zach, Sarah from Cleveland, Ohio. She wants to know the story behind the song "There Was Jesus," and then she also asked, "What was it like working with Dolly?"
Yeah, man, that was one of those, like, it's just one of those things that you never in your wildest dreams imagine happen. I remember going in with this idea. I didn't even have the title. I was just like, I wanted to write a song kind of about, realizing that God had been in the middle of all of these things in my life. But when I was going through it, I couldn't see it, and it took me getting to the other side of it to look back and to know that Jesus was in the middle of everything. And while we were kind of fleshing this idea out and kind of talking about it that morning, There Was Jesus was, the title that we came up with. And we wrote that song in a few hours that day. And I came home that night with just a little rough demo that we had put together before I left. And I was playing it for my wife, and we were sitting down at having dinner. And she said, you should see if Dolly Parton wants to sing on it. And I was like, you're joking, right? And she was like, no. And I was like, all right, I guess we've got a 50-50 shot, doesn't get to ask. And so when I brought it up to the label and I told them what I wanted to do, they thought I was crazy too. They were like, you don't just call Dolly Parton and ask her to sing on a song. I was like, well, then how does it happen? So after some convincing, we found somebody that knew how to get a hold of her management and her PR people, and we just sent the song to her, and she listened to it. And so when I met her the day that we, worked in the studio, she told me that she said, I didn't even make it through the first chorus of the song. And I knew, she said, maybe one of the best songs I'd ever heard. And she said, I wanted to be a part of it immediately. And so, and then getting to work with her, she was just an amazing lady, just so humble, so kind. And we've become friends over the last few years. I've actually got a new song coming out in March with Dolly. We just shot a music video for it this past weekend, and it'll be the last song that I release off of this last record, 100 Highways. But for me, it was just one of those songs where I took the lyric from the chorus of this song. It's the song's called "Looking for You," but I took the lyric, down 100 highways of empty pursuit and 1,000 foolish things I went through. I didn't know it back then, but now I do. I was looking for you. And that's where the title of the album came from. And so I was kind of like, man, this is my favorite song on the record. Like, it tells my story. And it tells a lot of people's stories. For me, I look back on the things that I was doing in my life and where I was trying to find happiness, whether it was in drugs, alcohol, a relationship, something that I could go out and buy, and realizing that those things only lasted for a season, and it wasn't until I met the Lord that I realized, man, all of my life, this is what I was looking for. I was looking for Jesus, and so I was working with Dolly on a Christmas special about a year and a half ago, and she asked me what I was working on, and I told her, I had this new record that I was trying to finish up, and she said, "Well, play me something." And I played her this song. I played her "Looking for You," and she was choked up and teary eyed when it was finished. And she said, "Well, why didn't you ask me to sing on that?" And I was like, "Well, I would love to have you sing on it." And so, a few months back, I reached out to her, and she did her vocals on it, and then we got together and shot a music video last week. And so I'm excited about it. You never, like I said, never in my wildest dreams would I ever imagined having that opportunity, much
Right.
less twice. So pretty special song, and she's a special person. So.
Now, did you guys shoot the music video at Dollywood on one of the roller coasters? Come on.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't.
Well, Zach, this next part we like to do with our first time guest, and it's just titled Favorite Things. So I'll give you a word, and you just give me your favorite thing in that category.
Okay.
All right. First one, what is your favorite food?
Oh, I'm torn. Probably, I would probably go with Asian food of some sort.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have favorite movie?
Golly, that's tough too. Tombstone, Back to the Future.
There you go.
Golly, Footloose. Oh man, there's some tough ones there.
Old school ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Do you have a favorite show that you like to watch, binge or?
Oh man, favorite show. Man, I get so caught up in like whatever's out. Man, favorite show. I wouldn't say I don't watch a lot of TV, so I'm more of a sit down and watch a movie guy. I'm so busy most of the time. No, I don't think I have a favorite show.
You can always say you just like to watch The Chosen. That's the Christian answer.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite artist of all time?
Man, in Christian music, I would say it would be probably either Milo Lefebvre or Russ Taft. There were a couple of my favorite singers.
Yeah, Milo Lefebvre, my favorite album. Well, I love Crank It Up, and then the what's the big one everybody loves?
Sheep and Wolf Clothing.
Sheep and Wolf Clothing. Yeah, that's a good one.
That had Trains Up in the Sky and
yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Do you have a dream duet?
A dream duet.
Or the same with Dolly.
Same with Dolly. Man, it's going to be really tough to beat that.
It could be living or dead.
Yeah, golly. I would have loved to have done a song with Milo Lefebvre. I'd still love to do one with Russ Taft. So I'd those guys. I mean, they were a big influence on me growing up as a kid. So
sure. Do you have a favorite ice cream flavored?
Probably black walnut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite podcast?
Man, to be honest, I'm not a big podcast person.
Don't listen. Yeah.
I wouldn't even know. I know there's so many of them out there. I don't do it. You know what? On the road, we play golf about every other day.
There you go.
So I get out.
Do you like Top Golf?
I do, but it messes my real golf game up. Like I go out there, play Top Golf. It messes the whole thing up. But no, we play a lot of golf on the road. That's probably one of my favorite hobbies.
Okay. Yeah. I know this probably changes from time to time, but do you have a favorite Bible verse?
I do. I would say like just my life verse is Jeremiah 29:11. I'm sure that's a lot of people's, but for me, it's one of those verses that I can remember as a kid, my parents, praying over me quite often, and actually seeing that now come to fruition and seeing what God's done, it's like, man, there's so much power in speaking those, verses and scriptures over your children. And so that's mine.
Yeah. Zach, what's next for you, and how can our listeners keep up with you?
All right, so book comes out. Rescue Story comes out on February 27th.
Mm-hmm.
I went in and recorded the audio for that last week, and so if you want to hear
You didn't
me,
get Morgan Freeman to do that?
no, no, if you want to hear me tell the story, you can hear it. Me and my wife both. She's got a bunch of parts in the book that she wrote, and so she
Okay.
went in. That comes out February 27th. Tour starts up on March 8th with Riley Clemens. This will be the last leg of the 100 Highways tour, and so if you've been out to one of those, the set's going to change a little bit for this last one. Got a new song, "Looking for You," coming out in probably early April to radio. Hopefully
Sure.
radio jumps on that, and then I'm writing right now for a new record, writing new
Okay.
songs. I've got some in the bag that I feel are pretty good, so I'm excited about it. But I've still got the rest of this month. I'm writing about 3 or 4 days a week, and so pretty much hitting the road in the spring. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this book. I'm really proud of the way it turned out. I really feel like it's going to minister to a lot of people.
Where's the best place people can pick up a copy of it?
I think from what I understand, it's going to be pretty much available in all your major like retailers where books are at.
Sure.
I know you can pick one up on Amazon. I'm sure you can hit one at any of the shows that I'm at, website.
Sure.
Just Google it. I'm sure that you can probably just order one. But yeah, so they'll be everywhere.
Okay, great. Well, to wrap up, I'd like to see if you'd be willing to share something that God's been doing in your life recently that would help build our listeners' faith.
Yeah, I think for me, patience is one thing he's been teaching me. I think you know it's I think it's easy, and I talk to a lot of artists about this. When you've had success and you've had success quickly, it's real easy for you to put pressure on yourself to try to duplicate what you've done. And
Mm.
try to think you've got to do better. Um, but I think it's just one of those things where if you just stay in, what God's doing in your life, stay behind Him, let Him lead. Those things, they just come. And for me, it's hard sometimes to not just kind of have the patience to do that. I want to try to get out in front and lead instead of following God. And so that's something I've been learning really in this past year. Just to
Yeah.
keep trusting and keep following Him.
Yeah, that's good. Well, Zach, your book, Rescue Story, Faith, Freedom, and Finding My Way Home, will be available everywhere February 27th. And we'll be looking out for that new song with Dolly sometime at end of March, April. And man, we appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.